All right. Now, before my last time, I came with some content. I was talking about the title of it was, if you didn't catch my last show, was "Children of the Rainbow" was the title. Homosexuality and communism, and I hadn't done anything for about a month and a half until I came in there and did that. And so I was really excited, and I couldn't wait to get back. But today I'm even more excited because, it's about to go down. I got IG Live going on right here in front of me. Pardon me, IG. I'm looking at the camera because this is going up on YouTube in a couple of days. We're just recording it, and I like the live stream from IG as I record. Let me just get a couple house cleaning things out the way first. Well, let me do this. Let me do this, because I'm starting to try my best to, make a little something maybe from time to time if I can. I don't even know how to pin my own comment. Jeez, there we go. Yeah, y'all just pinned my Cash App, and when y'all see this on YouTube, I'm going to put my Cash App in the description. So if you want to just throw something in a tip cup, cool. I appreciate it. The more and more I can lean into this, the more stuff that I can produce. If you do, in fact, enjoy it. So. Couple of streams ago, and I did a talk about Malcolm X. I accidentally confused Mumbai with Dubai. I thought that was kind of funny. I always sort of like to poke fun at myself because I do slip up, make mistakes, or sometimes I have these little verbal gaffes or whatnot. Last time when I was doing my thing, I was going into or breaking down Gail Rubin's essay "Thinking Sex," and there was a word I kind of tripped up on. The word was precocity, and I accidentally mispronounced it. Also, there was a quote from that piece where, and I kind of thinking about this off the top of my head because I didn't extract the quote to sort of represent it in its proper or to represent it properly, but I misquoted Gail Rubin when she was making a point to talk about how those who are engaged in cross-generational encounters are sort of lumped in with people who have sort of consensual relationships who aren't that far apart in age, but technically each individual lies on the opposite side of the legal divide. And so she talked about a 20-year-old being with a 17-year-old and how the 20-year-old is sort of treated unfairly by the law, irrespective of the nature of the relationship. When I was quoting from that, I accidentally said a 90-year-old and a 17-year-old. Why the heck I said 90, I have no idea, but that's not what it said. It was a 20-year-old and a 17-year-old, so that's on me. Now, here we are. First weekend of Black History Month. You see, I wasn't going to do this. And normally, it take me a while because I come in and I'm real kind of mellow, and then as I feel the spirit rising in me, then I start to get a little amp. But I think I'm coming out the box amp. And I'm going to tell y'all why. So last weekend, I had the pleasure of being a guest on the Keisha King show, right? And Keisha King brought me on because she wanted to discuss Marxism, communism, and its influence or its relationship to the civil rights movement and how the LGBTQ sort of latched on to the civil rights movement. Now, we were sort of engaged in a little dialogue. Now, I had prepared myself for the conversation, but I couldn't just sit there and just give some speech on my friend Keisha's platform because it was a conversation. So I just had things set off to the side in case I needed to pull some information during our conversation. But then something happened because, thanks to, and I'm going to mention him a lot, right? And I don't care what you all say. I'm going to be dropping this man's name like a $2 snitch because I think that above all of these so-called conservative content creators, this man is at the top. And that's my good friend, Chad O. Jackson. It's my good friend, Chad O. Jackson. And I think maybe it may not be him, but from my limited point of view, Chad O. Jackson is the man that has opened up the floodgates for this conversation surrounding Martin Luther King Jr., especially if you all have had a chance to watch Uncle Tom 2 and the cliffhanger he leaves on the end. I'm not going to give it away or spoil it for those of you who haven't seen it. If you haven't seen it, you should go see it today. Not now, but, well, don't do it right now because you're listening to me. But go watch Uncle Tom 2. So now, all of a sudden, in these conservative spaces, forget the left, in these conservative spaces, okay, we're asking the question, should Martin Luther King still be considered a hero in America? Now, people came at me. They came for me. Because, see, I told my friend Keisha, I said, Keisha, here's what I'm going to do, all right? I got a lot of stuff set off to the side. I didn't get a chance to discuss it. If you bring me back on, maybe I can get more into the details. But I'm sorry, Keisha, what I had set aside, right, I figured I'm going to bring it on the my platform, and I'm going to just air it out right here, right? So I could just go with my flow and do my thing and say what I want to say, right? Because people are coming, who is he? How dare he? He can't talk about Dr. King like that. Pardon my, boy, let me tell y'all. I told myself, I'm going to maybe try to clean up my language a little bit because I'm kind of like in conflict in terms of, that whole thing is concerned. But let me just pray that God open my eyes up to see another day, and I'll repent tomorrow. But today, I can't make no promises. But when people say, who are you and what gives you the gumption, the gall to sit up here and criticize MLK? Motherfucker, I'm me. That's who. You see, let me say this before I get into what I came here to talk about. Because you conservatives are spineless, cowards. You sit up here and you criticize the right. Again, me and my boy Chad O. Jackson have talked about this copiously in private. And he has said to me, because he knows the people who are in the so-called conservative movement. And I'm not going to say no names. I'm not going to say nothing that I should be saying. But he told me straight up, Chuck, there is no conservative movement. There is no movement. Because what conservatism is and what the right stands to do as of right now is simply slow down the inevitable because they have no spine. You wonder why? You're constantly playing catch up while you're constantly on the defense when it comes to the left because you will not reclaim the narrative. You just let them run roughshod and you're afraid to go out and say what needs to be said because you have no spine. But guess what? I don't have shit to lose. I don't got no big multi-million-dollar contract with some media agency. I ain't on Fox News, Newsmax, none of that. Who are the conservative elders amongst us, huh? Larry Elder, Tom Sowell still alive? Who else we got? Now I ain't just talking about black ones. Who else we got? Victor Davis Hanson? Huh? I'm talking about the ones that we know of that are on TV a lot. And I'm not attacking them. I'm simply saying they ain't talking about it. But my buddy Chad O. Jackson is talking about it, and I'm going to talk about it because I ain't got shit to lose. I ain't got no book deal. I ain't got none of that. They know about MLK. I know they know. As much as they put out about what they know, they can't be this oblivious. But they won't talk about it. But I will. I will. This is the first weekend of Black History Month, and damn it, I'm going right for the head of the snake. This is part 2, or should I say a second installment in the Death series. I dealt with Malcolm X a couple of months ago, and I'm going to probably be back around because you can get it twice, 3 times, 4 times. Worship God, not man. I started to wear my Worship God, not man t-shirt, but I left it at home. If you ain't Jesus Christ, you can get it. I don't care if you're MLK. I don't care if you're Malcolm X. I don't care who the hell you are. If you ain't God, you can get it. I think I might put that on a shirt. If you ain't God, you can get it. How that sound? You wonder why we can't take the United States back and steer it in a more conservative direction, steer it in the direction where it started. to get us back to a constitutional republic. You wonder why we can't get there? Because you scared. Listen, I ain't no super gangster. I ain't hella tough. Let me tell you. But I done stared death in the face many a times, and I'm blessed to still be alive at 39. I done come too far to be scared, and all I got to do is sit up here and talk? What you scared of? You scared to criticize a man in MLK who's been dead for 60 years? You ain't gonna talk about him. Well, I am. I'm gonna talk about it. Let's go. I'm gonna add some folk, because I got some comments to read. Come on in. Come on in. I invite you to come get an education. Where you at? Hold on, y'all. Hold on, y'all. I'm gonna add some people. And I don't even know if this is actually you. This might be you. If it ain't you, I apologize. Gail Positive. I'm sorry if I got the wrong Gail Positive, and you probably ain't gonna come in anyway. But I just want, because see, y'all have something to say. And see, y'all ain't the only ones. Hold on, y'all. Hold on. I got it right here. I wrote you down. Mr. Roman, I wrote you down. Hold on, y'all. Hold on, because I'm going to get into it. I know y'all like, Chuck, stop all the damn build up and get to it. But I got some people I want to bring into the conversation. Not bring it to the conversation because you ain't going to be talking to me. You're going to be listening, because I came to educate you. Come get an education. Come get an education. And this ain't talking from ego, because I don't know everything. But I know for a fact, based upon what you said to me or said to the viewing audience in the comment section, that you sure as hell don't know everything. So come get an education. Let me read to y'all what somebody said to me, because my homegirl Keisha King posted a reel where, you know, of course, the point of a reel is to get you intrigued, is to make you want to, oh, man, what is he talking about? Okay. And I ain't going to be looking down there too much, because I know it's probably going to be some conversation going on. I love y'all IG. Talk amongst yourselves. You may not catch everything I'm saying, but it'll go up on YouTube later. Now, Gail Positive says in the comment section, this is an individual. Now, I don't have no bad feelings toward, and like I say, they just put their opinions out there. They weren't trolling. But this is just their point of view. Fair enough. But see, when you come into these social media streets, it's rough out here. So you need to watch yourself, because it get like that. But this ain't no personal thing, and I ain't trying to bully nobody. I'm simply saying, because again, I wasn't even going to talk about King, because I said, man, this is becoming somewhat hackneyed, because everybody wants to revisit the King question now. But I say, forget it. I'm going to go ahead and take my pound of flesh too. Week 1, Black History Month, I'm going for the head of the snake. If you ain't God, you can get it. Somebody said to me, because in the reel, if you haven't seen it, the question that is posed to me by my friend Keisha King is, was the civil rights movement a communist front movement? And I said in the clip that J. Edgar Hoover was asking that question back in the 50s and 60s. And here you and I are answering that same question, or asking that same question today. So how wrong was J. Edgar Hoover? We gonna find out. This person says, J. Edgar Hoover slandered King by calling him an anti-American communist. He had followed him. He had him followed and was relentless in his efforts to discredit him. So Hoover was relentless in his efforts to discredit King. Hoover was a racist who wanted to keep blacks as low as possible on the totem pole. So Hoover was a racist. Okay, got it. Oddly enough, here's the kicker. Now, this is the one. They thought they stung us with this one. Oddly enough, he may have been a closeted gay with some African ancestry. Oh, my God. J. Edgar Hoover may have been gay and he may have been black. Oh, my God. Katie barred the door. Conversation over. He may have been black. Wow. How fascinating. What else do you got to say? What else do you have to contribute to the conversation? J. Edgar Hoover may have been gay? You don't say. Did you see the movie J. Edgar Hoover? Huh? Did you see J. Edgar Hoover's character depicted by Leonardo DiCaprio? This was long before the whole LGBT thing had taken over Hollywood. Did you see that movie? You don't say. J. Edgar Hoover may have been gay. Oh, you know what? I don't even know why I'm here. Why am I sitting here? Why am I here talking to y'all? J. Edgar Hoover may have been gay. the fuck that got to do with anything? I'm going to go on. Joe so-and-so, private account, no avatar photo, 1 post, 9 followers, says the civil rights movement was not a communist front movement, but it was used by communists to advance their cause. It was only years later, after leftists have totally taken over the education system. So the left took over the education system years after the civil rights movement. This is what he explicitly states here. Then he said, this is not a conspiracy. Read the data. He tells the viewer or the reader of his comment to read the data. Okay. Well, I took you up on that offer, sir, and I read some data, and I'm going to read some data today. But I'm going to check back with you throughout this presentation to figure out if I did enough reading for your taste, for your liking. That some of these rights and social justice movements came close to being nothing more than front movements for status like communists. So it was after the fact. Got it. After the fact. Got it. Now, the first person who commented asks this person and says they want to talk to each other. You dig what I'm saying? During the civil rights movement, capitalism only benefited white people. That's what capitalism only benefited white people. Some places were so bad that even Asians were not hired. For example, in order to practice medicine in most hospitals, you had to be a member of the AMA. And many local chapters barred non-whites, including Asian physicians. So they dropping some gems. There's some knowledge, ain't it, y'all? Woo! They dropping knowledge. Why am I even here? You can go and read this. Somebody else says, Rungies says, real name Oliver. Well, I ain't gonna say his name, but you can go to his page. Page is public, and whatever. And mind you, God bless the 3 of you. I mean that. I don't hate you. I don't got nothing against you. Okay, but this is his motivation. Because, see, I'm not going to go back and forth with you in the comment section on some petty stuff. Because you ain't going to learn nothing in there. You're going to learn something here, though. Because everything that I'm about to say ain't going to fit in the comment section. Because I got to reshape your whole worldview. Because you all backwards. You starting off from a premise that's messed up. That's why you here where you are right now in your mind. And so he says, people always say things. This was the one that got me, y'all. People always say things on social media and don't provide the evidence or proof to support their statements. Dude, it's a 10-second reel, dude. Go and watch the show. But you ain't gonna watch the show because you want me to just neatly just package it and put it all together for you, huh? And trust me, that reel went out. I didn't get a lot of likes on that reel. And me and Keisha collaborated on that reel. We ain't even get I post reels on my own and get 100, 200 likes. I ain't even got 50. I don't even know how many likes me and Keisha got on it. And she got 7,000 followers. I think I lost about 2-3 subscribers after I posted that reel. But I don't give a damn how many subscribers I lose. I can lose each and every last one of you. I don't care. I don't care if I got 1 follower left, my wife. And I don't care if she stopped following me, goddammit. Because my commitment is to the truth. I don't care about your false idols and your phony icons. Now, let's get into it. Now, we going to see because, and then the one guy, Joe, said something back to Gail. And I didn't even read the comment. It's just a long comment. I didn't read it because, I have to protect myself from the negative, sinful nature of, I don't want to engage in an argument or a petty back and forth. And so once I know where someone is mentally, once they continue to comment on my stuff, I just swipe their notification to the side and I don't read them because I don't want to be tempted to say something to a person that I may regret. So I didn't read his comment. But anyway. So let's get into this. I want to thank the 3 of you because y'all motivated this. Because again, the death series, we are going to kill the legacy of MLK. Because y'all sit up here, bro, and y'all wonder why. You wonder why things don't change. You wonder why things haven't changed. Because you're too afraid to do what needs to be done. Now, let's get into it. Get your notepads ready. Because my man told me I need to read, so we going to read. Martin Luther King, Martin Luther King Jr. was born Michael King Jr. to Michael and Alberta King on January 15th, 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia. King Sr. would later change his son's name to Martin after a trip that included a visit to the historic sites of the Reformers in 1934. Let me say this as an aside, because I didn't even write this down. I just was kind of going, I said, let me mention this, right? So if we're talking about, well, King and Marxism and communism and all of that good stuff, what's really going on here? Let me tell you a little twist. This is funny to me. It's quite ironic. See, Karl Marx, he was born in a town called named Trier. He was born in Trier, Germany, which was a predominantly Catholic area. Not very many Protestants in that area, okay? And, his father, Marx, of course, being an ethnic Jew, his father and he had some, his family, particularly on his mother's side, were, involved in the, what do you call it? It's the clergy, the rabbinical. I don't quite know what the terminology is when you're talking about the Jewish faith, but pretty much like he had some religious leaders on his matrilineal side. And it was his father that introduced the more open-mindedness, so to speak, to the young Marx, because his father would convert to Protestantism or Lutheranism when Karl was a young boy. I want to say, going off memory, maybe around 6 or 7 years old is when Karl Marx was finally baptized. But when Karl Marx was growing up, his father was more open to the sort of non-sacred or non-theological texts and beliefs, primarily from philosophers the likes of Voltaire. Now, I could do an entire presentation on Voltaire, but within the Protestant Reformation is this weird paradox. And again, I was having a conversation. I think I was talking to Chad once again, and I said, bro, I'm not qualified to discern, Catholicism versus Protestantism and who's right and who's wrong, right? I'm just simply talking about it for what it is, okay? Because Martin Luther, it was kind of like a weird, because he sort of stressed, it was almost like a conservative backlash against the indulgences, the literal indulgences, and the sort of figurative indulgences of the Catholic hierarchy, right? Because they were straying away from biblical teachings. This was one of the key points to Martin Luther's rebellion. But in essence, in the wake of the Protestant Reformation, led to this sort of outburst of a lot of spiritual, in a sense, individualism, so to speak. It's kind of, I hope I'm sort of making sense, like I say, because like I say, inherent in this, I can sum it up in one sense, inherent within the Protestant Reformation was this sort of ecclesiastical paradox, because Martin Luther was stressing biblical orthodoxy, while at the same time the Protestant Reformation helped usher in this era of intense individualism, which would, of course, lead to the scientific revolution, which would, anyway, I don't mean to get into a sidebar, but Martin Luther was sort of like a product of this sort of a Renaissance era of individual thought and what have you. And so the reason why I bring up Martin Luther, I got on a little tangent about Martin Luther, is because did you all know that Karl Marx, he was partial to Martin Luther? Because Karl Marx, I know he hates religion, right? But Karl Marx revered Martin Luther, not because he was raised Lutheran, but because he thought the rebellion against the Catholic Church was the first step in the dialectical process toward the overall evisceration of the church. Because Karl Marx prophesied that individuals would become so individualistic with respect to their spiritual outlook that it will virtually render the power of ecumenical authority null and void, because everybody will, in a sense, have become their own God. I'm going to read you a quote from Marx with respect to Martin Luther. He says of Martin Luther, Luther is at the vanguard the destroyer of medieval thoughtfulness, even if his theological thought remains pre-critical and his onslaught against usury naive. So, of course, he had criticisms toward Martin Luther, but overall, Marx believed that this was this was the first step. This was marvelous. This was wonderful. And, you know, you can go off and get into and read Karl Marx's takes on Islam as well, because he was favorable to Islam as well. Because first and foremost, to Marx, it wasn't so much religion in general, and we'd get to that, because see, everything is a dialectical process. But we must first destroy the influence of the most dominant church in Europe at the time, which was the Catholic Church. So let's move on. Little sidebar there. I shouldn't have probably even gotten to that sidebar because I got a lot of stuff. In a July 18th, 1952 letter, MLK wrote to his wife, Coretta Scott, about his beliefs as a minister and proclaimed, this is a quote from MLK, "Let us continue to hope, work, and pray that in the future we will live to see a warless world, a better distribution of wealth, and a brotherhood that transcends race and color. This is the gospel that I will preach to the world." That is the gospel he will preach to the world. A brotherhood that transcends race and color. Okay, we cool there. But he says a warless world and a better distribution of wealth. What part of the gospel is that? Now, see, listen. I'm not a theologian. I'm not qualified. See, I tread lightly when it comes to these things, because I don't play around when it comes to the revelation of, you know, I don't play around. But I'm just asking a question. Some biblical scholar, please, in the comment section, when I post this on YouTube, tell me, what part of the gospel is that? This was 1952. Distribution of wealth. What the hell is this man talking about? Let's go. As a self-described advocate or advocator of the social gospel, King's theology was concerned with, this is a quote of King, with the whole man, not only his soul, but his body. Not only his spiritual well-being, but his material well-being. So King was concerned with man's material well-being? Okay. I don't know. I mean, is that okay. I don't know. I got to read more. My man Joe said I got to read some more. So we're going to keep reading, and we're going to figure this thing out. Social gospel. We're going to revisit that. In Charles Howard Hopkins' book, The Rise of the Social Gospel in American Protestantism, he writes, this is Hopkins, Charles Howard Hopkins, "The early social gospel movement emerged during the rapidly industrializing American society following the Civil War. Recognizing the injustices of triumphant capitalism, some progressive ministers prescribed a large dose of practical Christianity to right these wrongs and directly address the social needs of the era." Okay. All right. Is that a problem? We cool? Okay. All right. We're going to keep going. I just want to make sure. I'm going to make sure, because this happened later. See, communists, they seized on the civil rights movement. They seized on Dr. Martin Luther King. They colonized. They took him away. They took him away from his righteous place. Took the civil rights movement away from its righteous place. That's what they're telling us. Okay. Got it. J. Edgar Hoover was slandering King is what they're telling us. Okay. One of the most prominent was a man named Walter Rauschenbusch. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing his name, because he was a German American and my German sucks, considering the fact that I don't speak German. But I'm going to try. If I'm butchering his name, I'm sorry. If I got some German folks out there, folks who know how to speak German. A German American who pastored a church in the Hell's Kitchen district of New York in the late 19th century. That's fitting. He was in Hell's Kitchen. That's fitting. Why you say that, bro? Why you saying about this man? We're going to figure out what Rauschenbusch believed and why it's important. and why I brought him up when talking about Dr. King. Rauschenbusch's magnum opus is a work entitled Christianity and the Social Gospel, published in 1907. My homeboy, I'm going to call him out. Don't come through that door, bruh. He told me, he said, man, Chuck, what you going to talk about today? I said, I'm going to talk about MLK. He laughed, he chuckled. He said, hey, bro, let me tell you something. All I don't want to tell you is this. He said, if you want to talk about MLK, man, he was serious, but he was joking. He said, man, you better throw some white people in there. And mind you, my homeboy is a good dude, man, you know, and he understands what's going on, although he may not understand everything that I'm about to say here, but he understands what's going on. But he said, man, you better throw some white people up in there, because they not going to listen, bro. You coming at the man. Well, Walter Rauschenbusch is a white man. That's one white guy. We got one to all my race obsessed folks out there. We got one white man. I don't know. At what point do we cross over the threshold where I have satisfied your bloodlust for white hatred? At what point have I crossed the Rubicon? We got one. Somebody keep a tally for me. We got one. King read Christianity and the Social Crisis while at Crozer Theological Seminary and wrote that its message left, this is a quote of King, left an indelible imprint on my thinking by giving me a theological basis for the social concern which had already grown up in me. So he's saying by the time I reached Crozer Theological Seminary, after having read Rauschenbusch's work, he pretty much validated the thoughts that had already grown up in me. My homeboy, Chad O. Jackson, told me, and I haven't been, and you know, I will take Chad's words to the bank because of his bona fides. He said to me, Chuck, Dr. King had abandoned the divinity and the physical resurrection of Christ by the time he was 12 years old. I know what you're thinking. He was a kid. I mean, we all question, we all right? He died when he was, in his late 30s? Come on, man, he changed. But we're going to find out if he changed. I got a whole lot sitting right here. I don't know if I'm going to keep, my battery might die on my phone before I'm done exposing this man. But he said it already grew up in him. In his book, Christianity and Social Crisis, Rauschenbusch writes, this is a quote from his own book, Rauschenbusch, in a few years, all our restless and angry hearts will be quiet in death. But those who come after us will live in the world, which our sins have blighted, or which our love of right has redeemed. Now, how blasphemous is that? Rauschenbusch proclaims that the love of man and our love of right will have redeemed the world for our children. So our love, how can we, the seed of Adam, redeem the world? How? I don't know. I wish I could resurrect Walter and ask him. We can redeem the world through our social actions? So who is Walter Rauschenbusch? Let's go into further detail. The son of a Lutheran, this is Walter Rauschenbusch. He was the son of a Lutheran missionary to German immigrants in the United States. Rauschenbusch graduated from Rochester Free Academy and then studied for 4 years in Germany, returning in 1883 to simultaneously finish at the University of Rochester and begin seminary training. So he was in Germany. We know. Anyway, the late 19th century, he's in Germany studying. Who knows what the hell he was exposed to? Oh, we do know what he was exposed to because I'm about to tell you. June 1st, 1886, he was ordained a minister of the Second German Baptist Church in New York City, where he became aware of social problems from the personal distress he encountered in a depressed neighborhood and from the mayoral campaign based on a social welfare platform by the economist Henry George. Even more influential were two young Baptist preachers, Leighton Williams and Nathaniel Schmidt. Both with Rauschenberg, all three of them, formed a Society of Jesus. That was the name of this group they founded. Later expanded into something that became known as the Brotherhood of the Kingdom. For the Right, was a monthly periodical that Rauschenbusch helped to establish, and I'm sure he contributed to it, editorially speaking. In the Interest of the Working People was the title of the monthly periodical that was published in For the Right. Was launched in 1889 in an effort to reach the laboring classes and to aid in the formation of a Christian socialist program. To create a Christian socialist program? What year was that? 1889? See, no. See, you don't understand. See, the left took over the civil rights movement. See, you got you want to come and watch your mouth before you to see. This is some heavy stuff, man. So you just can't come up in the comment section dicking around, man. Cause this ain't for that. This for the okay. 1889. This was 19th century we talking about. Christian socialism. All right. Let me stop capping. Let me get back. The publication ceased in 1891 when Rauschenbusch left for a year of study in Germany and a visit to England, where he became interested in Fabian socialism. Fabian socialism. The term Fabian socialism was, of course, a creation of the Fabian Society. That wasn't their original name, but they changed the name to the Fabian Society to hide their socialist orientation. The Fabian Society is a group that belongs to the London School of Economics. The Fabian Society, I haven't checked recently, but they still may be in operation. And there was a sister organization in the United States whose name escapes me. I didn't put it in my notes, but there was it was called the World Collegiate something or another that attempted to spread the teachings of the Fabian Society throughout American universities. They had an American counterpart. But some of the more prominent members of the Fabian Society was George Bernard Shaw, H.G. Wells, the Huxley brothers, and none other than George Orwell. The emblem of the Fabian Society is a wolf in sheep's clothing. He became interested in Fabian socialism. When I was talking to my homegirl Keisha King, I referred to the King contingent of the civil rights movement as the Fabian left, and I referred to the Malcolm X contingent of the civil rights movement as the Bolshevik left. This would go on to play itself out over several decades. Those who thought that socialism should be implemented incrementally, and others who believed in revolution. In 1897, he joined the faculty of Rochester Theological Seminary, and in 1902 became professor of church history. Upon the publication of the social crisis in 1907, Rauschenbusch gained recognition as the major spokesman of the social gospel movement in the United States. This is a quote from Rauschenbusch. Rauschenbusch demanded, and I quote, A new order would rest on the Christian principles of equal rights and democratic distribution of economic power. Let me read that again. A new order that would rest on the Christian principles of equal rights and democratic distribution of economic power. What the hell part of Christian principles is the democratic distribution of economic power? Listen, I don't know everything. Somebody can explain it to me. They're going to attack me anyway. How dare you? See, you got conservatives who claim they got your back. They fighting a good fight for you, but they don't want no parts of this. To quote my homeboy Chad O. Jackson, let go of the rope in the tug of war over Dr. King's legacy. Let it go. Let them have it and reclaim what real conservatism is. Stop letting them tell these lies. In his unpublished autobiography, this was unpublished. It was written in 1973 when unpublished, entitled A Black Rebel, the Autobiography of MLK Sr., Dr. King Sr. asserted that his ministry, this is a quote from his father, that his ministry was never solely, this is a quote of his father, never solely oriented towards death and life. It has been equally concerned with here and now, with improving man's lot in this life. And the word "this" is italicized, implying emphasis. I have therefore stressed the social gospel. That's King's father. If you don't know, again, King was pushed into the ministry by his father and by his grandfather. They were a succession of black preachers. King's father, King Sr., helped to form the Georgia Equal Rights League in February of 1906, and he was a founding member of Atlanta's branch of the NAACP. We know about the NAACP, huh? The NAACP, that wasn't the Communist Front movement either, huh? Yeah, I got smoke for them too. It's coming soon. He started the Georgia Equal Rights League in February of 1906. Now, this was before the establishment of the Communist Party of America. But we know, so you got to have your antennas up. Because when you hear words like Georgia Equal Rights League, equal rights, that's communist language. Oh, man, but you being hysterical, Chuck. You engaging in hysterics. What is you? Are you the reincarnation of Joe McCarthy? Equal rights, what's wrong with that? Well, listen, let me say this. Without getting into all these details, if you don't know and if you don't accept the fact that the civil rights movement was a communist front movement, then you don't understand communist tactics. It's a whole ton of literature housed at the Library of Congress and the Soviets themselves. All of this stuff you can go and read. It's at the Library of Congress. Go pull it up. If you want to know how communists operate. King tied his faith to the nonviolent protests that characterized the Montgomery bus boycott, noting that Christ furnished the spirit and motivation for the boycott. So Jesus Christ was his motivation for the boycott. That's his word. That's King's words. So the theologian Walter Rauschenbusch is the man that primarily shaped Dr. King's worldview when it came to his Christian worldview. But what about Jesus, Chuck? What about Jesus? Well, let's talk about it. King, this is an essay that some of you you can write. The Stanford University Press has all this information, all of the letters, not just, everything that King wrote or anything that was associated with him. You can find it with the Stanford Press archives of the King papers. It's online for free. But homeboy said it ain't a conspiracy. Read the data. So I read the data. Thanks, bro. King writes in an essay he wrote in 1949 or 1950. We're not quite sure of what year this essay was written, but the title reads, "The Humanity and Divinity of Jesus." Go and read that work. I took some excerpts from it. This is King. The conflict that Christians have over the question of Jesus' divinity is not over the validity of the fact of his divinity, but over the question of how and when he became divine. The more orthodox Christians have seen his divinity as an inherent quality of metaphysically bestowed. So King is asking the question of when Christ became divine. Again, I am no theologian. I would defer to Pastor Vodi Bach, anybody, Justin Peters. I would defer to anybody. And like I said, I don't know what the heck is what when it comes. Listen, I'm a baby. I'm minuscule when it comes to this type of stuff right here. But I'm just saying, it don't take a genius to know, to understand. He said, why is King even asking the question with respect to when Jesus became divine? What does he mean, when? we may find the divinity of Christ not in his substantial unity with God, but in his filial consciousness and in his unique dependence upon God. It was his feeling of absolute dependence on God that made him divine. The title of this, I put it in Instagram, is Heterodoxy and the Social Gospel. I don't quite like it. It sounded okay, but I didn't like the title because it's kind of redundant because, you know, the social gospel is a heterodox belief, right? So it's kind of like saying basketball and sports, but I kind of like the way it sounded. But he's saying that it was Christ's dependence upon God that made him divine. So it was his fealty. It was his commitment that made him divine. He wasn't born that way. The Orthodox attempt to explain the divinity of Jesus in terms of an inherent metaphysical substance within him seems to me quite inadequate. To say that the Christ whose example of living we are bid to follow, who we are bid to follow, is divine in an ontological sense, is actually harmful and detrimental. To invest this Christ with such supernatural qualities makes the rejoinder, now, in quote, this is us speaking, watching Jesus. He says, oh, well, he had a better chance of that kind of life than we could ever possibly have because he was divine. So what Dr. King was saying back then, but he changed, Chuck, we're going to find out. He said, what he's saying, if you don't follow, if you don't understand, he's saying that you as a Christian, if Christ was born divine, it made it easier for him to, and there's a portion of the essay where he talks about Christ's humanity. But he says, but what made it easy for Jesus to overcome the temptations of the flesh and all the battles and the tempting on the mountain and dost thou quote the scriptures, et cetera, et cetera. Christ overcame those temptations because he was divine. So in essence, you as a follower of Christ, you can't overcome those temptations because you were not born divine. So in order to substantiate a relationship between you and God, right? You must see yourself as being able to do what Jesus did based upon the same level of commitment that Christ had to his God. In other words, King says, one could easily use this as a means to hide behind his failures. I ain't God, so shoot, man. What y'all expect from me, man? Only Jesus could do that. That's problematic to King. So that the Orthodox view of the divinity of Christ is, in my mind, quite readily denied. He denies the divinity of Jesus. Now, you may agree with that. Some of you watching this may agree with that. But I'm simply saying, are there not any Orthodox Christians who would take up issue with this? All these black pastors and black preachers? Is anybody going to call this man out for his heterodoxy, his heresy? He says, the true significance of the divinity of Christ lies in the fact that his achievement is prophetic and promissory. So if God did it, you could do it too because he's a human like you, not divine. I'm not even going to question my rudimentary theological understanding can tear a hole right through that. But I'm not even going to waste my time. But I want those of you who claim to be Christian, who believe that Christ died, was crucified, died, 3 days later, rose from the dead, bodily. Yeah, I'll let y'all deal with that. Or maybe we can deal with it together. But I ain't going to deal with it right here. I'm going to move on. But just keep that in mind. That's what he said. Oddly enough, I got the information. The professor gave him a comment. I'm going to read this. I thought this was funny. The professor, I don't know his first name. His last name is Davis. Professor Davis says, mind you, he was reverend. Like my homeboy said, I peeked down at the comment section. I'm trying to stay out the comment section. He's a reverend. He was ordained. So this is what he pushed. Okay. The professor remarked on the essay, you need to proofread your papers before turning them in. But that wasn't the funny part because we all typo. We all do that, right? I started off talking about my gaffes. Note, correction on page 4. Nevertheless, he marked, the work gets a B+. And he praised the paper as, this is a quote from the professor, as a solution which would appeal to the liberal mind. To the liberal mind. To the liberal mind. So that's a bit of a background into King's theological beliefs. We're going to move on. Titled this section, was King a communist? Was he a communist? Well, we're going to ask. I like to start off this section of this presentation with a quote from Dr. King that I know all of you are familiar with. But I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it a little broadly. I'm going to go and I'm going to read more of it. Y'all remember this one? An injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Never can we afford to live with a narrow, provincial, outside agitator idea. Anyone who lives inside the United States can never be considered an outsider anywhere within its bounds. Do y'all realize how dangerous of a statement that is? First and foremost, do you realize how stupid that is? And a lot of people quote it like they saying something. Man, King said, man, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, man. I know some of y'all done posted that on y'all social. Some of y'all got memes and shit, quotes of it, right? Some of y'all done posted it on your social media profile. That's what King said. A dangerous statement. A stupid and a dumb thing to say. It makes no sense. On its face, it makes no sense. But I like that quote because it gives you the mindset. What he's doing, he's broadening, as I said on my homegirl Keisha King show, he's broadening the base of the proletariat because he wants everybody involved to stir up as much hullabaloo as they possibly can. If you see something over there that don't necessarily affect you, you see a man getting beaten by 5 police officers, you ought to take to the streets because that's a threat to you, even though you may never have experienced such ill treatment by way of law enforcement. It still involves you. So get out there and make a fuss. Outside agitator isn't good enough. And injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Stupidity, rank stupidity. This, of course, leads into the internationalist perspective of none other than Vladimir Lenin himself. Because men like Vladimir Lenin and later on Joseph Stalin condemned the United States not merely on the basis of deed, but on the basis of existence. It's not deed that defines a man. It is the class that he belongs to that defines a man. And when communism is international, hence post-colonial theory that's being taught in our universities, there is a class with respect to your membership to your nation as a citizen. So there is a dialectical relationship between the United States and other countries that are lower on the totem pole than the United States itself. So you're going to have to pay for that. Lenin said, seeing as how the United States represents at its best the capitalist bourgeois state, there will never be peace for the working class until the United States is no more. Until the United States has been successfully Sovietized, there will be no peace for anybody in the world. That is what Vladimir Lenin said himself. That's why communism was an international conspiracy. A. Philip Randolph. Who was A. Philip Randolph? Is it too much heat? Is it too much fire? Is it too much? Huh? Y'all want me to stop or y'all want me to keep going? I'm going to keep going, even if it's just me in here talking to myself like a crazy person. Go ahead and unfollow me. Unsubscribe to my channel. I won't miss you. Embodying the Communist Party's turn from third period sectarianism to Popular Front coalition building, and I've talked about this on my homegirl Keisha's show. The National Negro Congress was the culmination of the party's Depression-era effort to unite black and white workers and intellectuals in the fight for racial justice, and marked the apex of party prestige in African-American communities. The NNC grew out of discussions initiated by communist delegates to the Joint Committee on National Recovery. The National Recovery's Conference in May of 1935 on the economic status of African Americans under the New Deal. So African Americans, they was getting a raw deal during the New Deal. So the Communist Party delegates during the Joint Committee on National Recovery's Conference in May of 1935 came up with this idea of the National Negro Congress. Why are you talking about this? I don't know, man. My man said the left took over the legacy of the civil rights movement after the fact. They say, Chuck, you take stuff out of context. Why you doing King like that? Why you doing the civil rights movement like that, man? You taking it out of context. Is this enough context for you? I ain't even halfway done. John P. Davis and Communist Party leader James Ford stressed the need to consolidate the strength of disparate organizations dedicated to fighting racial discrimination. The JCNR conference concluded by forming a committee of 60 prominent activists charged with organizing a National Negro Congress the following year. The result was an unprecedented confluence of civil rights, labor, and religious groups from across the nation. The very term and concept of civil rights didn't even originate in the mid-20th century. It originated much sooner, much earlier. I just like to point this out. And you can go married in different ways, but I like the 1936 forming of the National Negro Congress. I like this as a talking point. What about y'all? In February 1936, over 800 delegates representing 551 organizations and over 3 million constituents congregated in Chicago, Illinois for the first NNC convention. 3 million in Chicago, the home of CPUSA. The political home of Barack Obama. And to this day, Chicago is one of the most corrupt political cesspools, not just in America, but on the planet. Second, maybe only in terms of America, to New York City. I don't know. We may get to New York City. But what did I start off talking about, y'all? A. Philip Randolph? Well, of those 800 delegates, guess who was the president? A. Philip Randolph was elected president of the NNC. A. Philip Randolph. What do you got to do with King? I'm going to tell you. Stick around. A socialist labor organizer and civil rights leader. So A. Philip Randolph was a socialist, you don't say. A. Philip Randolph, just to jump ahead, he was one of the key figures that organized the 1963 March on Washington. Yeah, he was. And it was organized by A. Philip Randolph and financed by a man by a man by the name of Stanley Levison. And we're going to get to Stanley Levison. His name comes up a lot when you talk about King. In 1941, Randolph hired 29-year-old Bayard Rustin to lead the youth wing of the March on Washington. Now they had a March on Washington. It was planned. They had an early one. It never jumped off. Rustin learned it did 20 years later, but it took him a minute. But it was in the works for a long time. Okay. Rustin learned during his affiliation with Randolph, Rustin learned tools that he would employ for 3 decades as a mentor to MLK and an influential advocate of nonviolent civil disobedience. So you got A. Philip Randolph, who was Bayard Rustin's mentor, and you got Bayard Rustin, who was Dr. King's mentor. Writer Pierre, I'm gonna revisit Bayard Rustin. Writer Pierre Dreer wrote in Jacobin magazine. You know who the Jacobins are? I'm gonna tell you. That may come later. This is a magazine. Jacobin. It's still going. You can go on the website. You can read their work. Jacobin magazine says this is Peter Dreer. In 1945, Randolph spoke at Morehouse College, where King was a freshman. Randolph predicted that the near future would witness a global shift that would end white supremacy and capitalism. 1945. All these jackasses running around talking about white supremacy. Dr. Umar Johnson and his ilk. See, there's a little subcategory existing amongst us, right? They call it the black consciousness community, where they fight and squabble amongst each other. But see, you ain't never had no pro-Christian, especially somebody who looked like me that's trying to defend Western civilization, get at your ass. I am sick and tired of you and people like you. You've been destroying the black community and by extension the country for far too long. We sick of your bullshit. This goes all the way back to the 1940s. They was talking like this. They still talking like this. People want to accuse me and other folks of being grifters. It don't get no more grifty than this kind of shit right here. 1945, ending white supremacy and capitalism. We still got fools running around talking like that today. And nobody's willing to stand up to them. The so-called conservative movement, they don't touch them. They go to fucking CPAC and talk. That's fine. I ain't got no problem with CPAC. But where did they get a load of me? Now, he urged the students to link up with the people in the shacks and the hovels who, although poor in property, were rich in spirit. It was an eye-opening moment for the 16-year-old king. That's what Dreer writes. Okay. But he changed. Okay. He changed, y'all. He was 16, man. Chuck, what the fuck? Why you tripping? He was 16. Randolph left his post at the NNC due to his suspicions of the Soviet Union. But Dreer writes, this is Dreer, Philip Randolph had left the NNC because he said, nah, there's some funny business going on here. I don't know. It's good. You got to understand. I stressed this on the Keisha King show. Go watch my homegirl Keisha show. Her and I did. Communism is a top-down conspiracy. You understand? Any communist offshoot takes its dictates from Moscow. I couldn't remember the man's name. When I was talking to Keisha, I told her it would come to me, but it never did. But it is on my mind now, so I'm going to say it. The primary liaison, the Russian liaison to the Communist Party USA, I believe during this period, was a man by the name of Gregory Zinoviev. We literally have Gregory Zinoviev's writings and his letters that he wrote to the Communist Party leadership of America. You can go and read his letters. Gregory Zinoviev. Randolph never gave up. This is Dreer, speaking of Randolph. A. Philip Randolph never gave up his socialist belief that unions in their members, regardless of race, and key to the struggle to are key, regardless of their race, are key to the struggle to redistribute society's wealth, provide good jobs for all, and create a more democratic society. More state control, less freedom. I got it. And he persisted in his belief that strategic mass action by a coalition of liberal, progressive, and radical forces is central to waking up America, to making America live up to its ideals. So liberals and conservatives and radical forces, that's the coalition building. That's the popular front tactic, the le populaire. because the whole Popular Front tactic was a brainchild of a French communist by the name of Albert Versailles, who was tight with Vladimir Lenin. Albert Versailles. Don't even ask me how to spell his name because I don't know. But again, Popular Front, liberals, progressives, radicals, all together. That's the left. Liberals just go along and get along, just dumb as a box of rocks, as Lenin says, useful idiots, while the radicals are steering their agenda. Only takes a handful of them. But they're organized and they're patient and they're diligent and they're committed. Unlike us, I suppose. In 1964, Randolph was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by LBJ. LBJ gave him the Presidential Medal of Freedom, but that didn't stop A. Philip Randolph from criticizing him. In the same year, he proposed something that is known to history as the Freedom Budget. The Freedom Budget. See, at the time, mind you, communists, they hated LBJ. They hated JFK, okay? They hated Ike, our boy Ike Eisenhower. Perhaps not as much. And they hated Harry Truman. Part of the issue or part of the deal was, and why there became, well, one of the reasons why, and this is according to the likes of A. Philip Randolph, why he, and later on King as far as the Vietnam War is concerned. Because the war on poverty was in conflict with the Vietnam War. Because to A. Philip Randolph, that is why the war on poverty was stalling. That's why the war on poverty did not take immediate effect, because LBJ was too fixated on Vietnam. So he wrote up what became known as the Freedom Budget proposal, and it was co-written along with Bayard Rustin. And guess who wrote the foreword of the Freedom Budget proposal? None other than MLK. MLK wrote in his foreword of the Freedom Budget proposal that we shall eliminate slums for Negroes when we destroy ghettos and build new cities for all. Who the fuck is this we? What is he talking about? What is this man talking about? We destroy, what is he talking about? When you destroy a ghetto, Mr. King, you don't destroy infrastructure. To destroy the ghetto, you must revolutionize its inhabitants. So, the ghetto, and I said this in a previous show I was on, the ghetto isn't the ghetto because it's the ghetto. It's the ghetto because the people who live there embody a ghetto mentality. You destroy the ghetto, the infrastructure of the ghetto, and build new buildings, new this, new that. It's still a ghetto. It's a nice looking ghetto, but come back in a couple of years. Build new cities for all. Who? Build with what? Whose money? Whose resources? What the hell is this man talking about? We shall eliminate unemployment for Negroes when we demand full and fair employment for all. How the fuck you gonna demand full employment? Who the hell do you think you are, MLK, that you gonna demand somebody hire somebody? And if I ain't willing to hire them, what the hell you gonna do? You gonna create a government job to put them in? What you mean, bruh? Fair and full employment for all, how? Oh man, but see, you don't understand, Chuck. The civil rights movement, it was necessary. We needed that. Is that what we needed? We needed, man. I understand that King was kind of wrong. Everything wasn't right. But see, black people were still getting treated badly back then. No, they wasn't. No, they wasn't. Their values changed. And so the perspective of the so-called black community began to change when they began to walk around spiteful and resentful. And that was the point. Fuck America ain't treat you no kind of way. And to the extent that you were mistreated, you carry that burden. You bear that cross with dignity and honor. And you stay true to your values, true to your principles. Walk in the plan that God has for you, and watch how your circumstances start to change. You don't abandon your values. You carry it with dignity and grace. You don't demand that somebody else start doing something for you. We shall produce an educated and skilled Negro mass when we achieve a 20th century education system for all. Come on now. What the is this man? What? This was 1964. He was assassinated 4 years later. What the man got to say? What he got to say? Yeah, Dr. King, are you a communist? Yeah, I am. Oh, damn, well, that proves it. Because if he don't say it, that's slander. But did he say it? Now, let's move on. Who was Stanley Levison? Stanley Levison was born in 1912. I missed the actual date of his birth. I forgot to write it down. He was born in 1912. He was a white Jewish American businessman, lawyer, and lifelong activist in progressive causes. He attended the University of Michigan, the educational home of none other than Bill Ayers. I think Tom Hayden may have went to University of Michigan as well. Of course, Bill Ayers is the co-founder of the Weather Underground. Not the Weather Men, but the Weather Underground. It started off with the SDS. The SDS broke off and formed the Weathermen, and the Weathermen broke off and formed the Weather Underground. And their patron saint was none other than Che Guevara. There's been all type of commies and wackos in my state. They all come out of the University of Michigan. Gail Rubin, who I spoke about last time, is currently, last time I checked, is still teaching there. All hail the victors. He went to Columbia University. Now, let me tell y'all. Columbia University is perhaps the most despicable institution, the most damaging institution, particularly American institution, in the history of this country. Columbia, ladies and gentlemen, is of course, the institutional home of the defunct Frankfurt School. I made a mistake when I was talking to Keisha King. She asked me when I talked about the Communist Party being formed in the United States, or the two communist parties fusing together in 1920. She talked about, well, that was the same year that the Frankfurt School came into being, right? I forgot how she phrased the question, but her point was, when the Frankfurt School began to infiltrate America is what she meant. And I kind of talked about the Frankfurt School, the actual in Germany at Goethe, but I think she meant more so America. And see, the Frankfurt School came over and was housed at Columbia University post 1941, of course, when the Hitler-Stalin peace pact was rendered null and void by way of Hitler's betrayal of Joseph Stalin. That's when the Communist Party in America would do an about face on their opinion toward Adolf Hitler. And we'll get to that. But when Adolf Hitler's war machine began to kick in the hyperdrive, the Frankfurt School had to flee Germany because Jews were under persecution. Because all of the Frankfurt School acolytes were ethnic Jews. But prior to 1941, they had been in communication with other intellectuals at Columbia University because the teachings and the works of the Frankfurt School acolytes were gaining popularity all over the world. And when the Frankfurt School acolyte, when their scholars were in danger by way of Adolf Hitler and the Nazis, they reached out to their American counterparts for refuge. And it was the Columbia academics who reached out to the head of the sociology department at the University of Columbia to get him to accept them. And oddly enough, I forgot his name, y'all. I don't know off the top of my head because I didn't write this down. I'm just freestyling. The head of the sociology department at the time in the 1940s at the University of Columbia was a lifetime Republican, oddly enough. But he was convinced by his staff that, no, these were earnest men. These were honest men. These were just scholarly men who were interested in finding the truth and making new discoveries and all of these things that we are told that intellectuals are supposed to do. They're supposed to come up with ideas that make our lives easier. They're supposed to be the ones who solve problems. So he let him in. He said, come on over. Columbia University. John Dewey, you name it is a fucking hard. I mean, dog, it is a like the Rockettes kicking legs, all just dancing across the stage, one after another. Every crackpot, poop-up communist you know has some sort of affiliation with Columbia University. That's why New York City became a hotbed of all sorts of communist activity. I ain't reading the comments. Y'all talk amongst yourselves. I know I probably got some trolls in there. I don't give a damn. Some of y'all gonna die, fool. And the New School for Social Research is where he attended. He received 2 law degrees from St. John's University while serving as treasurer of the American Jewish Congress in Manhattan. He aided in the defense of Julius and Ethel Rosenberg. Do we know who Ethel and Julius Rosenberg are, ladies and gentlemen? Huh? They were the last people in American history to have been executed, tried and executed for espionage. They were Soviet spies. Stanley Levison was part of their legal team. Do you know that to this day, the borough of Manhattan on September 28th, 2015 declared that day the Ethel Rosenberg Day of Justice? Did you know that? Corrupt New York City. Because, of course, Ethel Rosenberg was innocent. It was unjust what happened to Ethel and Julius Rosenberg. But Stanley Levison was a part of their defense team. Levison was initially introduced to Martin Luther King by Bayard Rustin in 1956. So, A. Philip Randolph, Bayard Rustin, Stanley Levison. Stanley Levison was introduced to King by Bayard Rustin in 1956. Who was Bayard Rustin? While a student at City College of New York in the 1930s, Rustin joined the Young Communist League, drawn to what he believed was the communists' commitment to racial justice in the 1930s. This racial justice, social justice bullshit is not original to these frauds you see running their mouths today, and it sure as hell is not original or exclusive to the new left of the 1960s. This was the 1930s the communists were speaking like this. Your boy, none other than Barack Obama's self-described mentor, Frank Marshall Davis. If you want to know more about the communists and how they used race as a cover and a cudgel, just read the writings of Frank Marshall Davis from the 1930s and 1940s. Go and read them. I can only put so much in here because I'm probably not going to get through all this. Y'all might have to come back in a couple of weeks for the rest of it. Drawn to what he believed was the communist commitment to racial justice, Rustin left the organization when the party shifted their emphasis away from civil rights activities in 1941. So he left the Communist Party in 41. Remember I told y'all, a lot of people left the Communist Party in 1941 because of Adolf Hitler and everything else. And then it was like, okay, enough is enough. Matter of fact, when Stalin and Hitler established their pact in 1939 is when you began to see a lot of defection. Because people were like, man, how could y'all do this? Because one of the key selling points, this is another thing. This is also coming from the mouth of none other than the courageous Bella Dodd. I talk about Bella Dodd a lot. If you want to know a lot about communism and how it moves and what communism did to this country, read the memoir School of Darkness written by Bella Dodd. My man told me that the left took over the civil rights narrative after they took complete control over the educational system, explicitly stating once again that the left took over education post-civil rights. But according to Bella Dodd, the teachers' unions were taken over no later than the 1940s. And she knows this because she participated, because she was a member of the Communist Party for almost 20 years.
Bella Dodd said that part of the reason why she joined the Communist Party was because the Communist Party was the only organ, she thought, that was adequately standing up to the threat that fascism posed to Europe. So this was a key selling point to the Communist Party. They got people to join their ranks because they made a vow that they would protect them from the scourge of fascism and Adolf Hitler and Mussolini. Sounds like the left today, doesn't it? Everything that they find disagreeable, they label it as fascist. The same goddamn talking points they've been using them for almost 100 years. Everything that fascist ain't it. And I got another lecture where I talked about how fascism and communism ain't really any different. There's another quote from Bella Dodd. She says that she joined the ranks of the Communist Party because she believed that communists would stop fascists. What she did not know, and I'm paraphrasing, she said what she did not realize at the time was that communism and fascism were the same. As a matter of fact, communism is far worse. That's what Bella Dodd said, and I'm going to take her word to the bank. Now, move on. Back to Livingston. Just give y'all a little bit about Rustin. The FBI had Livingston under the surveillance of Jack and Morris Childs. Now, we got to pause here because I got to teach y'all about Childs. Morris Child. That wasn't his born. That's his American name. I think he was an American. He was a Ukrainian American, but he had one of those Russian Ukrainian sounding names. What's the language? What is that? Is that Russian or Slavic? I don't know. But he has one of those names. I can't remember what it's Moshe Shekelvik. I don't know. Morris Childs is the man's name. His brother Jack, but more so Morris. If you don't know about Morris Child, again, ladies and gentlemen, it's all there. All of this stuff is on the record. But he told me I need to read. He said, man, how you going to say that the communist movement was a front movement? You need to read. Okay, well, I'm reading. Am I doing enough reading? Morris Childs. Stanley Levinson was under the surveillance of Morris Childs. Let me tell y'all about Morris Childs. Morris Childs, born 1902 to 1991, was a prominent member of the Communist Party from 1954 to 1982. Morris Childs, along with his brother Jack and wife Eva Childs, participated in an operation which was conducted by the FBI and later named Solo. Within Operation Solo, the FBI supported a clandestine communication system designed and built by the Soviet KGB. Through this system, the FBI regularly received messages from the Kremlin and in the name of Jack and Morris Childs. Sent back information the United States wanted the Soviets to get. The FBI also handled millions of dollars smuggled from the Soviet Union to New York, either by Jack or Morris Childs or by KGB agents for the CPUSA. Morris Childs made 57 trips to the Soviet Union and other countries of the socialist camp. They call these the FBI called these missions. Morris Childs took 57 missions to the Soviet Union, working on behalf of the FBI as an American spy. He was a member of the Communist Party for almost 30 fucking years. He was the one who gave us all of the information on Stanley Levinson. Morris Childs. Oh, I know, it was a setup. The FBI, oh, I got Hoover. Morris Childs is a hero. Just like okay, let's go on before I get off track. He accompanied Gus Hall, who was at the time the general secretary of CPUSA. I know who Gus Hall is. Gus Hall ran for president in 1980 and 1984. He was the general secretary of the Communist Party of America. He ran for president. Y'all know who his running mate was? Anybody in the back? No hands? Okay. Gus Hall's running mate in 1980 and 1984 was none other than Angela Davis. The same Angela Davis who in 1979 was awarded the Lenin Peace Prize by East Germany. Pause to the people! Yeah, she one of them goofy ass motherfuckers y'all see every time. Cause we got to deal with this for the rest of the month. I'm glad this is the shortest month, because y'all gonna see her picture and King and the rest of them all together. in some weirdo collage of freaks. Angela Davis, a heinous, despicable woman who endorsed Joe Biden for president in 2020. Let's move on, because this ain't even about partisanship right now. And on April 30th, 1962, he was called to testify. This is Levinson. Under subpoena at an executive session of the Senate Subcommittee on Internal Security, where William Cussler represented him. Large parts of Stanley Levinson's testimony are still classified. You still can't read them. This was 1962. They won't even let you see what he said. Levinson initiated the end of his association with Dr. King in 1963. This was following the revelation to King by way of Robert Kennedy and JFK, and they pressured King to break off contact with Levinson. And Levinson said, bro, I'll do you one better, because King was kind of like, well, this my boy, man. Because when King was presented with the information, like he didn't know, all right, there's some people out there that say, nah, Chuck, he knew who the fuck Stanley Levinson was. He knew. He knew that Stanley Levinson was a financier and a lawyer working on behalf of the Communist Party. He knew. Bear Rustin surely knew. But King didn't want to abandon. He said, man, but that's my boy, y'all. He asked the FBI, he asked the Kennedys to give him proof. Levinson said, I'll do you one better. I will initiate the divorce of our friendship. Because King didn't want to abandon his homeboy. Levinson said, I'll do you one better, bro. I'm gone. Kennedy say, dog, I'm talking to these motherfuckers at the FBI, King. You got to stop affiliating with all these communists, bro, because they watching you. In 2012, Tim Weiner wrote in his history of the FBI that, and mind you, y'all, conservatives, they love King because they take that one goofy ass quote. No, it ain't goofy, because it's real. It's true. Like I say, they take one thing that's true and then they just run with it. The thing about content of character over color, right? So King was a conservative because he said that one thing. Then you got the left who says, well, King was assassinated. And so if he was standing up to the powers that be, he must have been a righteous man, or else they would not have killed him. I'm not here to get into conspiracies about whatever. I don't know who assassinated. I don't care. That ain't what this is about. I hope his soul found peace in the afterlife, but I don't care about who assassinated MLK. I don't care. Again, another distraction. Communists love martyrs, don't you know? King probably was better off dead than he was alive. In 2012, Tim Weiner wrote in his history of the FBI that Hoover believed Levinson had indoctrinated King in Marxist thought and subversive activities, and that King was part of Moscow's grand design to subvert the United States of America. Is that true? That's true. That's what J. Edgar Hoover said. But I forgot, he's gay and he may be black. So he got to be lying because he's gay and black. But he wanted to keep black people down. So he was a self-hater, you see. But no. See, according to the power and privilege principle, black people can't be racist because they don't have the institutional power to act on their racism, right? So black people can't be racist unless you're 5 police officers, then you've internalized racism or internalized white supremacy. Got it. 1 minute you can't be racist, another minute, racism is like rubbing off. It's like a sickness. You just caught it. When you put the badge on and you beat a black man to death, somehow, it's still the white man's fault. I got it. So I guess J. Edgar Hoover had internalized racism because he was really black, so he just hated himself, I guess. These people are so fucking stupid. Just so stupid. They will twist themselves into any kind of principle to make any type of bullshit make sense. Now, let's get into this. Now, it's finna get a little deeper. The entire case is laid out. This is what I wrote in a 36-page long essay written by Douglas Sturm entitled Martin Luther King Jr. as Democratic Socialist, published in the Journal of Religious Ethics, Volume 18, Number 1 in the fall of 1990. Am I giving you sources? Am I reading? Okay. Dog told me I need to read. This ain't conspiracy. I need to read. Okay, I'm reading, Joe. I'm reading, Oliver. I'm reading. Stern Right. I took some excerpts. You can go. The whole essay is online for free. You can pull it up. If you got an Adobe Reader on your computer, you can pull it up. Storm writes, I shall contend that Martin Luther King Jr. was a democratic socialist from his student days at Crozer Theological Seminary. I read you his papers. But the ultimate root of his democratic socialism orientation derives from the black religious tradition that formed the deepest fundament of his emotional and intellectual life, and that the change that is discerned in the final years of his life, dig this, is but refinement, or perhaps a shift in focus of his mission, but not a transformation of basic orientation. So according to Storm, King didn't abandon his socialist views. He just got slicker. He just got more crafty, but he did not change his overall orientation. Again, my homeboy, Chad O. Jackson, I love you, bruh. He told me, and I've heard him say this, he said, and I haven't done this. He has. This is why I'm citing him, because I can't verify that. I'm citing him. Chad O. Jackson says he personally has listened to every single solitary sermon Dr. King ever said that has been recorded, and he never once mentions the saving grace of Christ through faith. Never once. That's what my homeboy said. Never, not one time. He never changed. A close friend of King's. This is this is in the same essay. His friend, Pius Barber, that's his name, Pius. His name is Pius. Pius Barber, a Baptist cleric and longtime family friend, reports that King, this is a quote of Barber, King thought the capitalist system was predicated on exploitation, prejudice, poverty, and he believed, this is a quote, Barber believed that Marx has, no. I'm sorry, let me get this right. Barber is saying this of King. These are King's words according to Barber, that he believed, that is King, that Marx has analyzed the economic side of capitalism right. So according to Barber, King believed that Marx's criticisms of capitalism were correct. Put a little chapstick on. My big ass lips be getting chapped. I don't want y'all to look like a Pookie up here. Storm writes, King's critique. Now, mind you, King would answer these questions regarding his Marxism. Their statement, I got some of them in here. But Storm writes, King's critique of Marxism in no way implies a rejection of the kind of democratic socialism represented in Rauschenbusch's social gospel. Now, a little treat. I showed y'all this before when I was talking to Chad O. Jackson. Right here. This book here. I May Not Get There With You, The True Martin Luther King Jr., written by the king of grievance, Michael Eric Dyson. This is his book. I ain't no bandwagon jumper. I ain't somebody who came to this. I'm not no Johnny come lately. I bought this book when it first came out. I didn't even have facial hair when I bought this book. I barely got facial hair now. It won't grow that much. This book was published back in 2000, 2001. I done had this. I just want to jump on a bandwagon because it's fashionable to attack King now because I can get some likes. I can get some no. This is written by Michael A. Dyson. He's no stalwart of conservatism. But let's check out some of his sources. Let's go. Let's go to the book. I'm going to read. In 1966, King admitted that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 had not improved the condition of poor blacks in the South or the North. This is a quote from King, these legislative and judicial victories did very little to improve Northern ghettos, or did they do much to penetrate the lower depths of Negro deprivation. In fact, he argued, the changes that came about during this period from 1955 to 1965 were at best surface changes. They were not really substantive changes. This is King. In 1966, King acknowledged that the progress that had been made had been limited mainly to the Negro middle class. Hold on. So King saying, yeah, there's some black folks that's out there doing their thing, but all the stuff, first of all, the black Negro middle class is prospering in spite of your bullshit, King, in spite of the bullshit you and your cohorts were pushing, because blacks were doing fine before all this crap came along. But it only benefited the Negro middle class like he did something for somebody. But see, it wasn't enough because it wasn't reaching the ghetto. It wasn't reaching the poor folk. I wonder what their fucking problem is. No, you don't exchange. No, you don't transmit human capital. You don't infuse them with value, particularly biblical value. No, you teach them how to petition the state to steal from another man. Reverend. Let's go. In February 1968, King said that, this is a quote of King, the plight of the Negro poor has worsened over the last few years. Oh, really, King? And he called for a redistribution of economic power. That's a quote. King also contended in 1967 that the roots of economic justice are in the... I done read this so many times, y'all, but I'm still floored. Let me start over. King contended in 1967 that the roots of economic justice are in the system rather than in men or faculty operations. So the injustice is not men, it's the system. Christian, the problem is not man, it's the system. Reverend. In a remarkable statement, in a speech he gave, and I'll put this on my boy Shadow Jackson's YouTube. This is a quote that I put on his stuff in a conversation we had. In a remarkable statement in a speech he gave to his staff in 1966, King laid out the ideological basis for his deepening assault on poverty, economic justice, and class inequality. This is King, a speech. We are now making demands that will cost the nation something. You can't talk about solving the economic problem of the Negro without talking about billions of dollars. So what is he intimating? You got to spend. Government, you got to spend. You want to solve the economic problem of the Negro, homeboy, break bread. Okay. You can't talk about ending slums without first saying profits must be taken out of slums. You're really tampering and getting on dangerous ground because you're messing with folk then. You are messing with the captains of industry. Listen to this. This is commie talk. This is communist talk. The fuck he ain't got to tell me. I know it. If it look like a duck, quack like a walk like a duck, it's a damn duck. Now this means that we are treading in difficult waters because it really means that we are saying that something is wrong with capitalism. There must be a better distribution of wealth and maybe America must move towards a democratic socialism. Those are King's words. It's the problem with capitalism and that wealth must be redistributed as if wealth is some finite pie that must be divided amongst people equally. I'm running out of superlatives. This is rank stupidity. The statement is remarkable. This is Dyson. This statement is remarkable since King rarely allowed his positive response to democratic socialism to be recorded. He didn't want people to know what he was because communists lie. Marxists lie. They are trained to lie. They are taught to lie. They are told to lie. Marx explicitly stated this in his own writings, that you must lie. Lenin said it himself. You have to lie. You have to create organizations. He would say this in the Comintern meetings, that the American wing of the international Soviet movement must create institutions and organizations and groups, both legal and illegal. That's what Lenin said. King was no fool. He said, man, don't record me saying that. What you mean, King? Why you gotta lie, homie? If that's what you, why you want, if it's right, it's right. Stand on it. What you running for? Stand on it. Oh no, Chuck, it's just you good in that King, cause King they say he was having sex with, he was cheating on his wife. I don't give a damn about that. This ain't about that. This is systematic, prolonged, protracted deceit. This is not the fall of one man and his indiscretions. I couldn't care less about that. If that were the case, I wouldn't care. This is deliberate deception. His usual practice, according to one of his aides, was to demand that they turn off the tape recorder when he expounded on the virtues of what he called democratic socialism. And he could say, and he said, this is King, according to his aide, I can't say this publicly, and if you say I said it, I'm not gonna admit it. Told his aide, you tell somebody I said this, I'm gonna lie. Plausible deniability. I'm gonna lie. Are you, Reverend? King didn't believe that capitalism, as it was constructed, could meet the needs of poor people. This is the aide saying, this is what King would say. Capitalism can't reach the needs of poor people. Capitalism is the only system that has risen people out of poverty. That is objectifiably true. Why are we in 2023 still having this damn discussion? Because evil will always be with us until Christ's return. That's why. Every generation is but one generation removed. Where'd I leave off? The aide said, and that we might need to look at what was a kind of socialism, but a democratic form of socialism. Now, I hear y'all now, too. I hear y'all, see, China, see, it's a difference. See, socialism ain't democratic socialism, and socialism is not communist. See, there's a difference. I'm not even going to dignify that dumbass shit with a response. Keep it moving. Even in the speech that contains the passage cited, King said he wasn't going to allow anybody to put him in the bind the bind of making him say every time that he wasn't a communist or a Marxist. Now, still, as democratic socialist, Michael Harrington. I'm going to break down Michael Harrington. To my producer in the back, stop me anytime because I know I'm probably going long. Y'all still with me? Okay. Democratic socialist Michael Harrington said, King was highly reluctant to name his radical position in public. King didn't want to arouse suspicion and thus compromise the achievement of economic and racial equality. Dr. King had a genius for this, Harrington said. How do you phrase this message so that you don't betray the message, but you put it in terms which are understandable and accessible to people on the street? Harrington claims that King certainly wouldn't use radical phraseology in many cases for that reason. Now, who is Michael Harrington? Michael Harrington, born February 24th, 1928 in St. Louis, Missouri, died in July 31st, 1989 in Larchmont, New York. He was an American socialist activist and author, best known for his book, The Other America, about poverty. He was also chairman of the Socialist Party of America from 1968 to 1972. Harrington was known as the man who discovered poverty, and much of his work was an ethical critique of the capitalist system. In the 1950s, Harrington became a Trotskyite. What's that, y'all? Well, that's named, of course, after Leon Trotsky, because a lot of diehard leftists took the stand and they wanted to save the Marxist vision by saying that I am a communist, but I'm anti-Stalin. You ain't fooling nobody with that malarkey. As if Leon Trotsky is not a maniac mass murderer himself. No, see how they did. Trotsky was wrong, you see. Our boy John Dewey, who was heaping all his praise on the Soviet Union, began to question the Soviet Union due to their treatment of Leon Trotsky. Our boy John Dewey commissioned what became known as the Dewey Commission to analyze whether or not Leon Trotsky was actually guilty as Joseph Stalin claimed he was. And this was the key event that made John Dewey do an about-face on the Soviet Union. It wasn't that he abandoned communism, John Dewey, but he didn't agree with what they were doing to Leon Trotsky. Same thing here with Michael Harrington. He joined the small and intensely sectarian Young People's Socialist League, an affiliate of the Socialist Party that was controlled by Max Shachtman, the leading Trotskyist organizer. Around the same time, Harrington became involved in civil rights struggles. He strongly objected to the violations of civil liberties that occurred during U.S. Senator John McCarthy's investigation of communist subversives. Of course he did. Why would? Of course he did. He also organized students for the fight against racial discrimination with Bayard Rustin. There go Rustin. Everywhere I go, there he is. An associate of MLK Jr. and traveled south to take part in marches and sit-ins. During the entire this ain't no leap year, is it? The 28 days we got to deal with this. It was less now because we a couple days in. How many times are your children going to be even introduced to the term socialism when discussing the civil rights movement or discussing black history or even black identity for that matter? Who are they going to be introduced to the term? You don't start learning about Karl Marx until you get to undergrad. And even then you don't understand him. You just read about him. Shout out to the GIP. By the 1960s, he became more interested in building a progressive coalition. There they go. Labor Party, building a progressive coalition Labor Party that was not class-based and that would pool strengths of not only socialists, but also anti-Stalin communists, labor and student activists, artists, and intellectuals. Pause for the cause. Let me tell y'all something. Because, again, going back, and God bless my homie, Keisha, because she's the one because I had already been on this path to doing this. I said, forget it. I'm going to just go ahead and lay it out. And I couldn't remember. I told her I was going to cite the pledge and I couldn't remember. Because remember, the Communist Party is sort of like an actual mafia family. You have to take omerta, as they call it for the La Cosa Nostra. There's in a sense almost like a ritual. You have to take a pledge. So when he's talking about Joe McCarthy, and mind you, the anti-communist fervor in the United States is symbolized or epitomized in the symbol that is, and the man that is Joe McCarthy, but anti-communism fervor crossed the aisle. I detail that in my talk with Keisha King. Y'all should go check that out. But the reason why our government was so suspicious of communists is for this reason and for this reason alone. Because we were in a Cold War, nuclear armed standoff with a military superpower. You got citizens in your country that have pledged a loyalty or oath to your foreign adversary. Your job as a represented and elected official is to protect the interests of your constituents. Why in the hell wouldn't you be concerned? I told her I was going to cite the oath, but I couldn't remember it. Here it is, because I wrote it down. This is the oath. In order to become a member of the and mind you, a lot of times communists would not let their more prominent members, those who had affluent roles in the society, doctors, physicians, politicians, lawyers, etc., they would not allow them to become card-carrying members of the Communist Party. Why? Because they feared that if those individuals were ever subpoenaed to speak before the government, they didn't want them to perjure themselves if they were asked if they were a member of the Communist Party. So they felt it better for those who were high. So the twist of it is, the more, so check this. So if, say, for example, now I don't have any proof to suggest that King was a member of the Communist Party, but based on the strategy of the Comintern, Oregon, that if a man like King wanted to become a member of the Communist Party, they wouldn't have let him because he was too out front. He was too public. He was too vocal. The membership ranks, the card-carrying members, were the people who were not prominent in society, because they knew that the prominent people were the ones that the government would bring in to testify. So in order to protect them from perjury, they did not allow them to become members. But here is the quote. This is the CPUSA quote. We know this because ex-communists have testified to this fact. This is the oath that they took. This is the omerta. I pledge myself to rally the masses to defend the Soviet Union, the land of victorious socialism. I pledge to remain at all times a vigilant and firm defender of the Leninist line of the party, the only line that ensures the triumph of Soviet power in the United States. That's the oath of the Communist Party of the United States. That's their membership oath. To quote Langston Hughes, yeah, that Langston Hughes, that's another one who one of your kids gonna have to do a book report about, who said that our goal is to add an extra S. So when we succeed, it will be the USSA, the United Soviet States of America. That's a quote from Langston Hughes. Who the fuck is we, Langston? Who you running with? Who you down with? Say that for another day. Maybe my boy Chad O. Jackson to tackle Langston Hughes, that traitor, that scumbag. But he black though. Oh yeah, Michael Harrington, he white. That's two. That's two. Did I skip over? I might have. Okay. Now, back to the book. Stop me at any time, y'all. If y'all ain't liking this. The great Marxist historian, a man by the name of C.L.R. James, recalls of King that King told him that while he believed in radical ideas, he couldn't say such things from the pulpit. Now, of course, if your antennas are up, you can hear the radical ideas in what King is saying. He ain't hiding it well. James says that King wanted me to know that he understood and accepted and in fact agreed with the ideas I was putting forth. What kind of ideas was C.L.R. James putting forth? Who is he? Stay tuned. That I was putting forward ideas which were fundamentally Marxist-Leninist. Those are the words. That's the opinion of C.L.R. James. That Martin Luther King's beliefs were fundamentally Marxist-Leninist. James concluded that King was a man whose ideas were as advanced as any of us on the left. That's a quote from C.L.R. James. Let's get C.L.R. James bona fides on the record. Who the hell is C.L.R. James and how he know what Dr. Martin Luther King was thinking? C.L.R. James, in full, name, Cyril Lionel Robert James, born January 4th, 1901 in Trinidad, died May 31st, 1989 in London, England. Was a West Indian-born cultural historian. He was a cricket writer. He liked the sport of cricket. He used to write like a sports journalist, I suppose. And a political activist who was a leading figure in the Pan-African movement. You don't say. Pan-African movement. Okay. Pan-African, that's about freedom for black folks, right? No. That ain't what it's about. During the 1930s, James was a cricket correspondent for The Guardian and became increasingly involved in Marxist politics and the African and West Indian independence movements. His most notable work was a book published in 1938 titled The Black Jacobins. I asked y'all earlier who were the Jacobins. He wrote a book entitled The Black Jacobins. What is The Black Jacobins about? a Marxist study of the Haitian slave revolution of the 1790s, which won him widespread acclaim. Y'all think, y'all think the Haitian revolution, y'all think that was a great thing, right? Well, it wasn't Haiti at the time, was it? Santo Domingo became Haiti. That was a great thing, huh? Toussaint L'Ouverture. And his successor was Jacques Dessalines. Y'all, that was great. Yeah, all the political chicanery and corruption in the wake of the Haitian Revolution, which finally culminated in the reign of Francois Duvalier, a.k.a. Papa Doc. Y'all don't know who I'm talking about, huh? Okay. Conversation for another day. But no. That was American interference. That was Western interference. That's why Haiti is still the way it is. Black folks ain't got nothing to do with that. Maybe if they would have kept their French ways, Haiti wouldn't be what it is today because colonialism was a blessing. Oh, damn, I just lost 5 more followers. God damn. We're going to move on. These are some more of the names of C.L.R. James's books. He wrote a book entitled, just to let y'all know what kind of man C.L.R. James. He never abandoned his radicalism. He lived till he was like 90 years old. A history of Pan-African revolt, Nkrumah in the Ghana Revolution. I talked about Kwame Nkrumah when I did my talk on Malcolm X. Go check it out. World Revolution, Toussaint L'Ouverture, the study of the only successful slave revolt in history. It wasn't successful. It was successful in a sense, but Haiti did not become a success as we see. He wrote a book entitled Notes on Dialectics, Hegel, Marx, and Lenin. And he wrote a book entitled State Capitalism and the World Revolution. Those are just a couple. Damn, Chuck, okay, well, C.L.R. James, he can make an assessment of King, but what? It's more than just an assessment. They met. On a road trip to Ghana in 1957, why the hell was Dr. King in socialist Ghana in 1957 during the reign of the despot Kwame Nkrumah? Why was he there? The King stopped in London on their way, leaving Ghana, in London for 4 days to tour Buckingham Palace, Parliament, and Westminster Abbey. Oh, ain't that cute? He went to go visit the citadels of white supremacy, I suppose. I guess he, I don't know. On March 24th, the Kings met with a group of black intellectuals that included C.L.R. James, who was working on a book about Ghana and Nkrumah. Now, I found a letter. I don't even know how much battery I got life left I got, y'all. If my battery down on my phone, it die, y'all can check the rest out on YouTube. Who is C.L.R. Or should I say, here's a letter. I found a letter written by James to King. Here's the letter. Dear Dr. King, I expect that you are safe home by now. I hope you and your wife had a pleasant journey and that when you reached home, you found the baby well and the organization in good shape. I have by now been able to send a copy of the Black Jacobins to Louise and Lucille Armstrong and ask them when they have finished with it to send it to you. You will have realized by now that my political frame of reference is not non-cooperation, but I examine every political activity, strategy, and tactics in terms of its success and failure. I wish you the best of success, and I hope to hear from you periodically. I am thinking in terms of rewriting the Black Jacobins. The facts of the case and my general interpretation will remain the same, but there are many references and certain tones and attitudes which I think spoil the book for general public. With best wishes for you and your family, with warm greetings to all your fellow workers. Yours sincerely, C.L.R. James. P.S. The G report will be sent to you in a day or two. Don't come in my comment section fucking with me. Sorry, language, Chuck. Sorry, but I meant what I said. Don't come in my comment section fucking with me. Letter. Now, King wrote a return letter. Dear Mr. James, this is King to C.L.R. James. This is just a note to acknowledge receipt of your very kind letter on April 5th and to thank you once more for the hospitality extended to me and Mrs. King. So Mrs. King and I on our recent visit to London. I can assure you that you and Mrs. James will remain in our thoughts for many years to come. I have not had a chance to read any of the books that you were gracious enough to provide me with. On returning to the country, I have found a very crowded schedule awaiting me. I am just getting to the point that I can, said the word was inaudible, see my way clear. So, in the next few days, I hope to do much more needed reading. I plan also to begin writing a book on my experience in the bus boycott. I hope to complete this in the not too distant future. I gave your best regards to L.D. Reddick. He was very delighted to hear from you. He spoke of you very highly. I am looking forward with great anticipation for a copy of The Black Jacobins. Reddick has already told me what an excellent piece of work it is. Please give our best regards to Mrs. James, Mrs. King, and the baby are doing fine. Also extend our best regards to all of the very kind people that we met in London. Very sincerely yours, MLK Jr. The Black Jacobins is a fine book. Man, what the... Oh, Lord. Vladimir Lenin, he referred to his Bolsheviks as his Jacobins. Did y'all know that Karl Marx and his wife relocated to France for a brief period of time where Karl Marx learned of? Okay. Anyway, I'm about to wrap it up, y'all. I almost made it through the whole thing. Now, France has always been like a key point in Marxism and in the flourishing of that perversion, that affront to human nature, that satanic ideology. Marx learned communism in France, so did Pol Pot, etc. Now, what is the Spring Mobilization Committee to End the War in Vietnam? What is that? The Spring Mobilization Committee to End the War in Vietnam. What is that? On April 15, 1967, the Spring Mobilization's massive march against the Vietnam War from Central Park to the United Nations attracted hundreds of thousands of people, including Martin Luther King Jr., Harry Belafonte. Have y'all heard? I don't even know if Harry Belafonte is still alive. If he is, he probably, God bless West, nothing ill on him. I hope he repent before he kicked the bucket. Because Harry Belafonte is a one piece of work. Again, James Bevel, another piece of work, and Dr. Benjamin Spock. Y'all know who Dr. Benjamin Spock is? Benjamin Spock is a notorious communist front man. Dr. Benjamin Spock. He was considered to be America's sort of physician. He was a pediatric physician who specialized in child care. He wrote a book that to this day has sold. Last time I think it was like tens of. I mean, it was a sensation at the time. I can't remember the year it was published, but he wrote a book title, and I wrote it down because I always forget the name of it: The Common Sense Book of Baby and Child Care. They all were there, and they all spoke there. Dr. Benjamin Spock, big time communist front man. He's worth looking into. See, hold on. See, let me talk. See, before I get into the Spring Mobilization Committee to End the War in Vietnam, originally, back when there was a lot of World War II, matter of fact, I think World War II was in effect. I don't remember the year that this organization was put together, but there was an organization called the American Peace Mobilization. The American Peace Mobilization. The United States Congress, I know, it's government, so the government lie, right? The government lies. Don't believe nothing they say. Take it with a grain of salt. But the United States government declared the American Peace Mobilization to be one of the most clandestine Soviet extensions operating in America. It was an outright extension of the Comintern. This was during World War II. See, when y'all talk about anti-war fervor in the United States and Vietnam and all of the international Cold War politics that were surrounding that proxy war, the anti-war ideology was a Trojan horse of the Communist Party during World War II because it was the communists that were urging the United States not to get involved in World War II. Why? Because Joseph Stalin and Adolf Hitler were partners. It was not until Adolf Hitler betrayed Joseph Stalin that the American Peace Mobilization and all of its sycophants did an about-face and then began to urge the United States to engage in war to protect the interests of Soviet Russia. And it was this act of blatant duplicity that turned the mind and the heart of none other than the American patriot and hero, Whittaker Chambers. Whittaker Chambers said, I can't take this shit no more. The principle, y'all don't stand on nothing, huh? So we protect Hitler when Hitler was cool with Stalin. When Hitler wasn't cool with Stalin, now we hate Hitler too. Whittaker Chambers said, I'm gone. I'm done. Became one of the biggest informants we've ever had. Go and read his work, Witness. Whittaker Chambers' memoir entitled Witness. I can't do this shit no more. The ends will always justify the means because they were subservient to Stalin. He was a fucking emperor of sorts. He was a 20th century emperor. Unlike Haile Selassie, of course. So the American Peace Mobilization, that was a communist front group. My point is that communists always preach this peace bull crap in order to inculcate and insulate themselves from detection. All of these pro-peace, I say, war is not an ideological issue. War is a prudential issue. You cannot be anti-war or I'm pro-peace. That makes no sense. Pacifism is no virtue because sometimes war is necessary. Not all the time, but war is a prudential issue, not an ideological one. You can't be ideological toward war because it takes two to tango. Sometimes you either go to war or get your ass conquered. The communists knew what they were doing. They accused the United States of being imperialist and fascist and carrying on. But not Joseph Stalin. No, they were loyal to him. The American Peace Mobilization. Look that up. Now, we're going to move over to the literature. Again, now, I told you, King spoke at the Spring Peace Mobilization, so on and so forth. The short word of it was called Vietnam Week in 1967, and of course it all culminated in the Chicago riot at the 1968 DNC. Tom Hayden was at the forefront of all of this. You don't know who Tom Hayden is, look him up. Now, James Bivell. It was Bivell's commitments fueled his passion for peace. Stokely Carmichael's more secular inclinations. Who's that? Stokely Carmichael. There he is. Secular inclinations made him no less zealous about ending the war. As chairman of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, Carmichael was an important force in the organization's 1966 decision to criticize the draft and the Vietnam War a year before King and the SCLU followed suit. Again, there were people who were against the war, like the venerable, and I'm not describing this. He was declared venerable by the Catholic Church, the venerable Bishop Fulton Sheen. Again, I'm not qualified to have no debate between Catholics and Protestants, but I'm going to tell it like it is. Fulton Sheen was against the Vietnam War, but Fulton Sheen was arguably the most outspoken anti-communist in America during that period, probably throughout the 20th century. Just go on YouTube and pull up Bishop Fulton Sheen and listen to his talks. Fulton Sheen was against the war. Now, I'm not saying that there weren't legitimate reasons to be opposed to the war, but why they were opposed to the war, because they knew that by undermining the United States war efforts in the southeast region of Asia would help, of course, expand Soviet communism. They knew this. That's why they preached all that peace crap. They weren't about peace. They were about spreading communism. And they tug on your heartstrings with all this peace talk. Better dead than red. Kill a commie for mommy. Turned into make love, not war. How'd that happen? Oh, I know. The CIA created the anti-war movement. I heard about that. Anyway. We'll talk about that later. I was serving. This is Stokely Carmichael's comments. I was serving as chairman of SNCC and recognizing that we were being isolated politically. I instinctively understood that once King took a position against the Vietnam War, we will no longer be isolated. So we got to get King on board. That's what communists do. They try to bring in and breed and recruit legitimate, socially acceptable people to do their bidding. But remember, Dr. King was a socialist from the time that he was a teenager. Anyway, I'm going to skip that because the statement was, this is Carmichael, we're going to beat them with nonviolence and love. It was clear that the philosophy made it impossible for him not to take a stand against the Vietnam War. So Stokely is saying if King is talking all this nonviolent peace stuff, he got to be against the war. Logic dictates. So let's bring him in. Got it. Carmichael's relentless criticism of the war and his rising visibility as a leader of the controversial push for black power forced King to come to grips with the growing radicalism of poor black communities and the destructive, even genocidal relation between war and poverty. What the fuck is Michael Larry Dyson talking about? In fact, when King finally publicly opposed the war, he was viewed as one of the trio of troublemakers dubbed by Time magazine as King, Carmichael, and Co. And the Co was a man by the name of Floyd McKissick. Now, I told Keisha, Keisha, I got a transcript of a conversation between Stokely Carmichael and King, and I didn't get to it on her show, but I'm going to get to it now. King phoned Carmichael. Carmichael, in recognition of the latter's productive contribution to his views on Vietnam, said, "What are you doing?" King asked when Carmichael picked up the phone. "Tomorrow's Sunday," Carmichael replied. "Are you going to be a good Christian and go to church?" King playfully asked. Well, Carmichael said, "Like a good heathen, I'm going to go to work for the people. I've got office paperwork. I'll be working since 6 o'clock in the morning." King said, "Well, I want you to come to church." "Come to church? Where?" Carmichael replied. "To Ebenezer," King said. "What's happening there?" Carmichael demanded. "I'm preaching," King offered. "Well, okay, I can always come hear you preach, Carmichael said. "Because even though I don't believe in your stuff, you make me tap my feet." And I tell you, you fucking shit, you low-life black preachers. Booker T. Washington called y'all out a long time ago. Make me tap my feet. Make you feel like the presence of the Lord is in here. Sound good, feel good, ain't saying nothing, ain't teaching nothing. Okay. Carmichael and King enjoyed a moment of levity. "Well," King said, "I really want you to come tomorrow." "Okay, I'll come," Carmichael assured. This is King. "Because tomorrow I'm going to make my statement against the war in Vietnam," King informed Carmichael. There was about 35 seconds of silence between the two men. Finally, Carmichael spoke up. "I'm going to be on the front seat of your church." Carmichael kept his word. After King's impassioned plea for peace in Southeast Asia and after his stinging, bitter indictment of American policy in the region. So now Dr. King is a foreign policy expert. Carmichael joined the Ebenezer congregation in giving King a standing ovation for, in Carmichael's words, this was one of the most profound speeches he had ever heard. Now, there's a man by the name of Vincent Harding. Vincent Harding told King, now King said this same speech twice. He said it at Ebenezer and he said it at Riverside Church, same speech. Now, a man by the name of Vincent Harding He was a, I ain't gonna get into too much detail about Vincent Harding. It's not important. But he informed King, like, bruh, you gotta tone that down. That ain't gonna fly. Quick, Vincent Harding recalls, rather than simply being seen as a kind of anti-Vietnam statement, but that there should be an attempt to indicate the organic nature by which this flowed out his concern for both the black struggle in this country and for the health of the country at large and for the well-being of the Vietnamese people. So Harding told him, man, you got to clean that up, bro, because that's a little too much. Now, if you got Stokely Carmichael say this is the most profound speech he ever heard, you got a problem. Advisor Stanley Levison, there he go again, Stanley Levison at the time, told King that the speech had it was unbalanced and poorly thought out. So Vincent Harding and Stanley Levison both seized in on King and made him change and rearrange his speech. Mind you, a lot of King's speeches were he did not write them. Stanley Levison and there were other collaborators who wrote a lot of King's speeches, or at least had a lot of insight into what King said and didn't say. I don't know. Vincent Harding, he white? I don't know. Where we at? We up to 3? My boy said I got to talk about white people. Okay. So King gave a speech at Vietnam Week, the Peace, I always forget it, Peace Mobilization Committee to End the War, right? But it was a different speech from the one he gave prior at Ebenezer and Riverside. And many critics said it wasn't a good speech because he allowed Levinson to undermine his radicalism. He tainted it. So Levinson, right, a communist apparatchik, was becoming even less radical than King. The spring mobilization perhaps provided the most memorable line when he criticized Secret Service as white people sending black people to make war on yellow people in order to defend the land that they stole. That's Carmichael. I'm gonna read that again. Carmichael said at the spring mobilization provided perhaps the most memorable line because Carmichael spoke there too. The Secret Service is white people sending black people to make war on yellow people in order to defend the land that they stole from red people. Oh, Stokely, so brilliant, so well said, so well put, so well thought out. Ain't no Viet Cong ever called me nigga. Ain't that right, Ali? Hope you found peace in the afterlife as well. Was Muhammad Ali a communist dupe? Stay tuned. Not in this presentation, but maybe later. Ain't no Viet. So you see how they drawing the line between, you see, they got colored people, this expanded proletariat, and everybody, see the white folks are over here, everybody else of color. On this side, the yellow man, the black man, the red man, the white man over here. I'm sorry, I don't mean to include him. Freudian slip. I guess that's my decency coming through. They don't include the white man. The red man, yellow man, brown man, yeah, we all over here, the white man over here. All right. Now, I find this strange because, and I'm gonna end this, y'all, and I'm just about done. But what I find strange, again, every time, you talk about the white man sending the black man to kill the yellow man to protect land they stole from the red man. So again, the United States is an imperial power. Although, the United States has been the most restrained nation. I know what y'all think, but considering what the United States was capable of, I don't know about today, but what it was capable of, no nation has acted with such restraint that had the military capabilities that the United States had. Why is it that America is the imperialist, but not the Soviets? There's no such thing as Soviet imperialism. As a matter of fact, how many listen, this book is over 300 pages. I don't even think Michael Eric Dyson even once uttered or wrote the term Soviet imperialism. Why aren't the Soviets ever guilty? This Jimmy Carter détente bullshit. Mutually agreed upon destruction. They have a right to be. Well, fine, stay over there then. But that ain't what they did. They set up Soviet satellites just south of our border in Cuba, of all places. They weren't content to remain in Russia. What are you talking about? Lenin said it himself that the revolution was international. They were the imperialists, not the Americans. Stokely. And we still keep these fools on pedestals like they somebody. I can't. God say I ain't supposed to hate. He said I ain't supposed to hate. Now, I'm going to end this. King never claimed, this is Dyson. King never claimed to be a Marxist. Even if he had, it would by no means certify his communist standing. Many Marxists and pro-Marxists have long since eschewed communism. They value the profound insights on class and economic inequality that Marx offered without embracing the political party he favored. So how in the hell could you implement Marxism without an iron-fisted government, Mr. Dyson, or any of these so-called anti-communist party, but small c, they weren't committed to the Communist Party, but they were small c communists. How in the hell you plan on implementing this without an iron-fisted totalitarian government? You can't support Marxism without supporting the party because it's a statist ideology. Communism is the party. But real socialism, real communism has never been tried. Now, to bring this full circle, we started out, and I'm gone, y'all. I made it through. This is King on whether or not he's a Marxist. Powerful way to end it, because I want y'all to hear what this man said. The way, to quote my homeboy Kool Heem, the way he besmirched our king. Listen to this. King said that you don't have to go to Karl Marx to be a revolutionary, claiming that I didn't get my inspiration from Karl Marx, I got it from a man named Jesus. Jesus was anointed to heal the brokenhearted and to deal with the problems of the poor and those in captivity. King concluded that that's revolutionary, and that is where we get our inspiration. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. has been a Marxist his entire life. The civil rights movement wasn't infiltrated, it wasn't taken over. And mind you, I could have kept going. I could write my own book on if the civil rights movement was the communist front. Well, I could write my own damn book. But I spend time doing social media instead because it's 2023 and I guess y'all don't read no more. Dr. King knew who he was. He knew who he was affiliated with, and he knew what he set out to do. Just ask the people who knew him. He tried to hide it from you. This is why I'm telling you. You wonder why we can't get out our own way. Who is he to talk about Dr. King? Who the hell is this teacher Chuck Lewis? There ain't nobody. I'm me. That's who. If you ain't God, you can get got. If you want to run this back, it'll be on YouTube in a couple days. I appreciate y'all listening for this long. Peace out.